Let's take a look at the dart manipulation in creating a two-dart sloper. We will transfer half of our waist dart excess to the side dart position. This is covered in your textbook on page 91, the first of our two-dart series. This is where layers come in very handy in Illustrator. With layer 1, it will be our patterns, but I'm going to make another layer. I'm going to call these our guidelines. And I actually want to go ahead and put this guidelines underneath my layer 1. I'm going to turn on my Snap to Grid, which is under the View menu. That way my points will snap to intersections on the grid. And I'm going to use my pen tool to draw some guidelines. I'm also going to change my stroke color from black to kind of a bright red so I can see them. Then that way I'll be able to see a little bit better what I'm working with here. So I will click into my artwork. There is one point. I want a squared off line to center front and then across the bottom here. So I will go ahead and leave that there and go to my selection arrow to end use of the pen tool. Tell you what, I'm even going to go ahead and increase the stroke on that line so it's a little easier to see. Now, again, how we go ahead and cut our segment here in order to rotate the section of the bodice that we will be moving. We need our pen tool and we need to add the anchor point, and this will be directly across from the bust point over to the side. And I probably do need to find as close a intersection as I can, and if it's not allowing me to put it right on that line, that means it's not crossing an intersection. So I can go and turn my Snap to Grid off for a moment, and there, it did put my anchor point where I wanted it. Now I need to cut that anchor point. My scissors tool is a buried tool underneath the eraser. Notice the shortcut for scissors is C. All right, so I will cut that point there, my anchor point. Now then I can get my direct select tool, and remember that first things here, I would like to change my fill on my bodice from a white fill to a nothing fill, then that way it's easier to select those segments. So with it selected, I can do that. Deselect it. I am going to select the path here, the segment of one of my dart legs. As long as I select that, I have to deselect all points though, then select the other segment, and then I can delete it. I'm going to lock my guidelines. That way I don't accidentally collect it when I go to get these points here, here, and here. Now I could singularly select those, and that's pretty simple with only 3 points to collect. But by holding down my shift key. But what if I had more than just those 3 points? But by selecting this one point here, I'm actually getting the other 2 segments. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And let's check out our rotate tool. Remember when you click rotate, it's wanting to rotate it from that center. Okay, we actually do need to go ahead and get those other points selected. So I'm going to select that. I'm holding down my shift key and getting these other anchor points like so. I think we're good now. Then when I do my rotate tool, notice now it put the rotate axis kind of in the center of this overall space. I do want to rotate from my bust point. So I will single click to set my rotate axis or my pivot point right there. Now for this manipulation, I am not closing my anchor point to that one. That would be a single dart. I would be closing the whole one, transferring the whole dart excess to a new place. I am going to rotate this like in the book it shows our point here touching our guideline. So I will just click and drag with the mouse until that point touches the guideline. And now you can see I have part excess here of one of the dart and part of the excess down here. All right, I'm still in my rotate tool. I need to remember that. I am going to get my selection tool and click away from everything. Now I can use my pen tool to then finish closing my darts. I will pick up drawing at one of my open anchor points, and you can see the cursor changes next to my pen when I do so. Single click, I'm now adding on to that path. I'm going to actually line this up at my bust point first and then close that. Now, our darts do not end at the bust point, so I will come in, select that one point, and the side dart gets moved off about 3/4 of an inch. So I can just kind of use my 1/8 inch grid here to kind of move this out and over somewhat. And that's out of the way. I go back to using my pen tool and I can then pick up drawing my other dart. Again, set the dart point, the end, at your bust point to begin with. Then go to Direct Select tool and then edit its position. And trying to just get in here somewhere in the center of that dart, but it's not wanting to allow me to. If it's very hard to see or manage where you're going with something, zoom in on it, then go and try and edit it. That makes it a little easier. You get a better idea of maybe how far distance you are. In this case, about 3/4 of an inch and 3/4 of an inch. Make sure your bust point remains in place. Now I can Alt on my zoom on out like so. I do not need these guidelines anymore. I can unlock that layer. I can select those guidelines and delete them. Now I want to put my seam allowance all the way around here. And to do that, when I click on this, remember everything's grouped. So I am getting everything right now. I don't want everything, I just want the bodice path. I can use my Direct Select Group Selection tool. I can select that one object within that group. Now I can fill it again with white, as well as I can go up to my Object, Path, Offset Path. I want to do that by 1/2 an inch, so 0.5. Click OK. That's what I get there. Now I want to change the attributes of the stitch line to the dashed line. That's in my attribute panel, and click away from everything. Now, the computer will automatically do our seam allowances inside our darts. And I know in the class that we did our flat pattern in, we did shape those. But in this case, we're going to go ahead and just leave these seam allowances inside here. If at some point you would like to, you can edit these out a little bit by actually singular moving some of these points, but you probably won't be able to get a very accurate shaping out here until you've kind of dealt with darts enough to get an idea, an imaginary idea of about where those little bends kind of happen. The only way to be sure that that's accurate is to print one of these out and fold it and test it, and then figure out how many 1/8 of an inch you might need to make a change to. I won't require you to do that. You can leave your seam allowances like the computer did up inside the darts, and that's fine. So there's the example for the side dart. Good luck with it all. Let me know if you have any questions.